Tage Erlander was the Prime Minister of Sweden for 23 years, and he passed away in 1985. And when you listen to the debates before each and every election, you could actually hear from left to right, many people like to cite what he said. And today we're visiting here not to debate what he did right, what he did wrong, but rather try to understand, try to learn what formed his political ideology and also what he tried to fight for. 14 years ago, a courageous Swedish journalist from the West Coast, in collaboration with a scholar from Uppsala University, published a book revealing the existence of 14 secret concentration camps in Sweden. These camps, which incarcerated political dissidents during the Second World War, quickly became a topic of intense media scrutiny. Attention focused on Tage Erlander, the former state secretary, and his potential involvement in managing these camps. From that moment, Tage Erlander transformed from a mere historical figure in my school textbooks to a subject of deep intrigue. I became captivated by the question of why a gifted man from the quaint and picturesque Värmland chose to become a social democrat. What fascinated me most was his stance on the Third Reich and the complex relationship between Germany and Sweden during the war. Over 100 years ago, Tage was born in this room, and at that time he was already the third baby in the family. In the beginning of the 20th century, Sweden clung hard to its conservative roots, firmly upholding traditional Lutheran values. The era was marked by rigid gender roles, and challenging these norms was often met with strong resistance. For instance, many men believed that a woman's highest aspiration was to own an American mango machine, a symbol of domestic efficiency and status. This societal attitude extended to surnames as well. Those with the surname ending in SSON often faced subtle prejudice in refined societal circles, reflecting an unspoken class hierarchy. Tage Erlander and his siblings lived in a social limbo, straddling the line between the impoverished and the affluent. His paternal grandfather, Anders Erlandsson, worked as a skilled smith at an ironworks with a modest salary. In contrast, his maternal grandfather held a respected position as a farmer with civic responsibilities. Delving deeper into his lineage, Erlander's maternal grandmother's ancestry traced back to the forest Finns. These Finnish settlers migrated to Värmland from a province of Savonia in the 17th century, driven by the promise of new opportunities during a time when Sweden was expanding its territories and influence. The forest Finns brought with them unique agriculture techniques, such as slash and burn farming, which significantly impact the local economy and culture. Tage Erlander had 3 siblings. His oldest brother, Janne Gustav, and then he has a big sister, Anna Erika, Tage Fritiof. He has, of course, a little sister. Her name is Dagmar Maria. As a child, Tage was raised in a deeply religious and liberal household. His father, Erik Gustav Erlander, was not only his school teacher, but also a musician during service in the church. Martin Luther's small catechism held a prominent place in his upbringing. The significant book, written by Luther after he encountered widespread ignorance of Christian teachings during his 16th century village visitations, consists of a preface and 5 main sections: the 10 Commandments, the Creed, the Lord's Prayers, Baptism and Confession, and the Sacrament of the Altar, widely used for school teaching in Sweden and still significant worldwide. Each school day for Tage began with reading a passage from this book. Tage Erlander's father was a school teacher already 100 years ago, or 120 years ago. He started to teach carpentry in school. Throughout his career, Erik Gustaf Erlander deeply reflected on his role as an educator and a representative of God's best teaching for young and inexperienced children. He wondered whether he should primarily act as a mentor, guiding children to become strong-willed and dutiful individuals aligned with God's teachings, or focus on imparting knowledge. He extensively pondered the school's role in a child's development through adolescence. As a mentor, he believed that practical knowledge such as carpentry, financial literacy, and personal hygiene could positively benefit every child. As a teacher, he aimed to equip his students with the ability to seek knowledge independently rather than accepting common opinion and critically. If I were a student, I would sit in a chair and a table like this. When opened up, they have a book, a board to write. Every time they're going to make a mistake, they would take this, the tail of a rabbit, to erase it. Sounds like a quite idyllic life, right? Randseite might not be the biggest cosmopolitan in the world. However, the children could travel in their fantasy with their ears and also with books. In school, they learned how fantastic, how diversified the world is in places which they might have only seen on this bowl before. But at the same time, such description gave them an incentive to dream, to fantasize, and to start to imagine what they would like to do in the future. In 1890, Munkfors celebrated its first railway connection, marking a new era of convenience for travel between the quaint villages and the bustling cities of Värmland and Norge. Tage and his classmates were privileged to have Erik Gustaf Erlander as their teacher, a profoundly intelligent man, deeply dedicated to education. He fostered an intellectual environment by regularly hosting erudite people who discussed the latest global advancements in their small town. Beyond teaching, Erik Gustaf Erlander was also a savvy entrepreneur. Each autumn, he engaged his family in harvesting lingonberries to supply their income. During peak seasons, Tage himself would assist the railway station, crafting sturdy boxes for transporting these berries. During the winter month, he could bolster the household income by selling handmade interior details to local stores. Like many learned men in the latter half of the 19th century, he was deeply involved in the temperance movement, which had significant influence on the smaller village. As a leader of a prominent association, he was a talented agitator and understood early on the importance of presenting reasoned arguments to large crowds. Additionally, he was a skilled administrator, adept at coordinating various tasks. In the beginning of the 20th century, Sweden was by all means a quite strange nation. On one hand, you have industrialization, which makes really rapid progression all the time, and on the other hand, there isn't any infrastructure which allows women to take education, which allows the elder to enjoy the last years of their life despite they have been working so hard. So the difference in terms of education, in terms of experience, and most importantly in terms of economic resources was large between those who have and those who have not. So on one hand, we have the extremely well-educated elite who enjoys such lavish neoclassic edifice in the middle of the forest. And we have also a large crowd of people who could hardly write anything else than the famous passages from the Bible. So I can understand that Tage Erlander as a child must feel frustrated when seeing all this without seeing that somebody is making any means of improvement which will change the foundation of the structure of this society. In the Erlander household, a significant topic of discussion revolved around how to enhance Sweden's fairness and prosperity in a utilitarian sense. Concurrently, Sweden witnessed a substantial expansion of its daily press, marked by a surge in both the quantity of newspapers and the readership. The advent of railways and improved road networks further facilitated the spread of news between urban centers. At the heart of this media expansion was the emergence of muckraking journalism, characterized by its fearless exposure of corruption, misconduct, and societal injustices. These investigative journalists played an important role in Sweden's societal discourse, creating polemics that challenged established norms and provoked public debate. Their exposes not only uncovered wrongdoings within government institutions, businesses, and societal hierarchies, but also galvanized public opinion toward calls for reform and accountability. In the evening, the family gathered here to have their dinner, and I'm wondering how Tage and his father talked about politics, since they believed in very different ideologies. Erik Gustav Erlander likely saw the potential of societal improvement through reform and transparency. Many liberals of his time advocated for civil liberties, universal suffrage, freedom of speech, and the right to vote. They supported a constitutional government to protect these individual rights. Additionally, they backed social reforms such as public education, workers' rights, and social safety nets, believing that economic freedom would foster innovation, competition, and overall prosperity. In contrast, Tage Erlander, especially during his studies in political science and macroeconomics, might have been more inclined to question systemic injustice and advocate for radical change. The differing perspectives reflected broader societal divisions, shaped by the evolving role of media in influencing public opinion and changing entrenched power structures. When he was a teenager, the First World War broke out, and what they knew to be the eternal truth suddenly lost its magic. So Tage Erlander learned all that from newspaper readings, and I can actually imagine how a teenager might felt probably confusing, probably angry, and probably felt worried and anxious about what future might bring for them. The horrors of war were never more terrifying than in the poems written by soldiers who fought in the trenches under the restless bombardment of airplanes above. Civilians who endured and survived the Great War were often left traumatized for the rest of their lives. Sweden, although maintaining a policy of neutrality during the Great War, was not entirely untouched by the conflict. The country faced significant economic challenges, including trade disruptions and resource shortages, leading to widespread hardship and unrest at home. Given this backdrop, it is understandable that Erlander might have believed that a politician's most important task was to protect Sweden from being invaded by any superpower at any cost. The devastation witnessed across Europe during the Great War likely underscored the importance of safeguarding Swedish neutrality and sovereignty. This conviction would have been shaped not only by the immediate impacts of the war, but also by the broader political shifts and the fragility of peace in the world recovering from such unprecedented violence. Tage Erlander passed away in 1985. At the end, he was united with his family, his parents, his father, Erik Gustav Erlander, his siblings, his mother, and later his two sons, just a few meters away from his childhood home. Everyone in Tage Erlander's generation had their own perception of who he was. People within the social democratic movement respected his audacity and vision, whilst his opponents, who advocated for a minimalist government, despised his effort to construct one of the most complex welfare systems in the world. For me, he remains a mystery. According to Erlander himself, he never aimed to become Sweden's highest leader, yet he implemented an intricate wealth distribution system while Sweden experienced rapid economic progress in the post-war era. During Erlander's tenure from 1946 to 1969, Sweden transformed into one of the world's most affluent and egalitarian societies. His administration expanded public education, healthcare, and social security. However, this required high taxation and extensive government intervention. Critics argued that heavy tax duties stifled individual initiative, discouraged entrepreneurship, and led to capital flight, where their citizens and business moved their assets to countries with lower taxes. In the early 1990s, Sweden faced a severe economic recession, challenging the sustainability of Erlander's welfare state. I often wonder how Erlander would have commented on Sweden's economic recession. Would he have supported the shift towards neoliberal policies, or would he have advocated for maintaining a robust welfare state?